Hey everyone, I'm Mike Settele, and this is a walkthrough of Practice SAT number 10. I have never taken it before. I do not know what the questions are going to be. I do not know what the answers are going to be. You're going to see me take it for the first time in a similar way to how you would take it for the first time. So make sure you do not watch this video unless you yourself has also taken Practice Test SAT number 10 in the Bluebook app. That way I don't spoil any of the questions for you. You want to take it like a real test. You want to get scores that you can use to kind of understand your practice, and then you can compare how you went through those questions to how I'm going to go through the questions here. Make sure that you're using the right strategies, thinking about things the right way, moving quickly, using the pacing strategies the right way, all that good stuff. The only thing that's a little annoying is that Practice Test number 10, like Practice Tests 8 and 9, is composed mostly of questions from previous practice tests that had been released by the College Board, Practice Tests 1, 2, and 3. Those have been discontinued, but they've been chopped up and put back together as 8, 9, and 10. There are some new questions in here, some harder questions that are new, but also plenty that I've already seen before. But for Practice Tests 8 and 9, that hasn't really been a problem. I don't remember the answers to this stuff, guys. I teach it every day, but you still have to kind of do the work and get through the questions. So if you've seen some of these questions before, it's probably not that big of a deal. I'll make a note, as I'm going through if there's something where I feel like I'm getting an unfair advantage, but it's not going to be a lot. So these are still great practice tests. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's because several years have passed and Practice Tests 1, 2, and 3 are long dead. So this is a completely new practice test to you, so you can use these questions like new questions for everyone. So without further ado, let's just get right into it here. And let's get to the first reading section. And once we get there, I'm going to start with the grammar questions because I always want to do that so I can lock in a bunch of easy points. That usually starts around 15, but clearly here it's not. So we're going to go to 16, and there we go. Now, the first thing I notice is that the comma conjunction means we need to have two sentences. So let's see if we have two sentences. While many video game creators strive to make their graphics ever more lifelike, that is not a sentence, so this is wrong. And I probably wouldn't want to put a but there. So while many video game creators strive to make their graphics ever more lifelike, others look to the past, developing titles with visuals inspired by the 8-bit games of the 1980s and 90s. So it's going to be a comma. We can't put the but. The while is already covering the but, and we need something here because that while starts an intro clause that leads into the main sentence. Others look to the past. Good, easy. Okay. Here we have a semicolon and a period, which generally mean the same thing. So we're probably going to ignore both of them, but we're still going to look and see if we've got some clauses here. Specifically, an extra leap second is added whenever time based on the planet's rotation lags. So yeah, that's just a full sentence. Let me read the whole thing though. Specifically, an extra leap second is added whenever time based on the planet's rotation lags a full 9/10 of a second behind time kept by precise atomic clocks. Yeah. Nothing there, just ignore this so it doesn't get in the way, but otherwise it's just a thought. No need to break it up with a comma. Okay, this is about apostrophes, so you take them one at a time. So let's see. This whole thing is one sentence. Okay, in Death Valley National Park's Racetrack Playa, Flat Dry Lake Bed are 162 rocks that move periodically from place to place, seemingly of their own volition. Oh, here we go. Racetrack-like trails in the playa's sediment mark the rock's mysterious migration. Okay. So the rocks have a mysterious migration, so that needs to have an apostrophe. So it's going to get rid of B. And the racetrack is in the playa's sediment. So the sediment is owned or possessed by the playa. So that's going to get rid of A. And then now we have to decide singulars and plurals. Well, it's one playa, right? So that would be this. And is it multiple rocks? 162 of them. So yeah. So the rocks is plural no matter what. We don't really have a choice there. But playa is, yeah, right? I mean, singular. It's one playa the whole time. So that should be it. I've seen this question before. You still got to solve it. Okay. So here, the most interesting answer is C, because if we have two sentences, we've got no choice. A colon requires a sentence beforehand. So let's just test that out. Along with carbon dioxide concentration and temperature, light intensity affects the chemical reaction rate of photosynthesis. That's a sentence. So far, so good. As light intensity increases, so does the rate at which the reactants are converted into their products. That's a sentence too. So this is the only one that allows us to join two sentences. We would need a comma here, and nothing else is good enough. So there you go. Notice how many questions so far have had parentheses, and I'm just ignoring them because parentheses are an insert, and so you can just ignore them and just don't let them distract you. Okay, this isn't a positive question, I'm going to guess. It would be very weird for us to do this, but let's see it. Paintings by the renowned 20th century U.S. artists. Well, that's not a sentence, so bam. And we're probably not going to put commas around these things, so it's probably going to be this one. Paintings by the renowned 20th century U.S. artists Thomas Hart Benton and Jackson Pollock were featured in Artist to Artist. Yeah, and then we have a clause, so there we go. This is the definition comes first, so we don't put any commas around anything, and it's just a normal sentence, so no need to break it apart with commas. All right, here we go. In her 2012 analysis of tree rings from Japan's Yaku Island, cosmic ray physicist, whatever, noted an anomalous carbon-14 spike dating to this time, indicating that a massive burst of radiation reached Earth during that time. This unprecedented radiocarbon surge was dubbed a Miyake event in honor of its discoverer. Okay, so it's about her. So it's not a however, because why would that be a but, right? But of course we would name it after her. She discovered it. It's not a similarly because these are not things that are being compared. Fittingly means so that's probably right. This person noted a spike at a certain time, so this unprecedented surge was dubbed an event in her honor. Okay, yeah, that's right. In other words, it's not repeating the same thing. So there you go. Okay, in other words, again, this is almost always wrong, by the way. But let's see. One poll taken after the first 1960 presidential debate suggested that John Kennedy lost badly. Only 21% of those who listened on the radio rated him the winner. The debate was ultimately considered a victory for the telegenic young senator, who rated higher than his opponent, Vice President Richard Nixon, among those watching on the new medium of television. So Kennedy lost, and then it's a victory. This is a question I've seen before, and a lot of people get it wrong, if I remember correctly, and it's an obvious but, right? Only 21% of those who listened considered him the winner, but the debate was ultimately considered a victory for him because of people watching on television. It's an obvious but. There's a negative and a positive. It's not, in other words, we're not repeating ourselves. So if only 21% rated him the winner, then why would that cause people to consider it a victory? It doesn't make any sense. And it's not likewise because it's not two separate situations. So I'm pretty sure it's this, but it's one of those ones that a lot of people get wrong. I don't know why. Just, it's so obvious. Okay. Continuing in his 1925 book, The Morphology of Landscape, U.S. geographer Carl Sauer challenged prevailing views about how natural landscapes influence human cultures. Sauer argued that instead of being shaped entirely by their natural surroundings, cultures play an active role in their own development by virtue of their interactions with the environment. So he challenged one thing and argued something else. Okay. It's not a finally, because it's not, time isn't passing. He challenged prevailing views, how natural landscapes influence human cultures. So he argued, no, he's not arguing his thing because he's challenging other things. It's not similarly either. It's specifically, for example, right? He challenged prevailing views about how natural landscapes influence human cultures. For example, he argued instead of being shaped entirely by their natural surroundings. I don't love that. Similarly, it's just got to be this. Yeah, I'll mark it, but first of all, I've seen this question before, but I'm pretty sure it's got to be this regardless. Not even using my memory. For example, he argued this. He challenged this. Specifically, he said this. Yeah, okay. Indicate where this thing was found. So found in Western India's Thar Desert. That sounds good. This doesn't say where. Didn't say where. Didn't say where. So easy. So he wants to specify the reason the Pleiades' appearance changed. So just turn that into a question. Why did it change? Ancient Native American and Australian Aboriginal cultures describe the Pleiades, which are referred to in Greek mythology as 7 sisters, having 7 stars. Why did it change? No idea. Although once referred to as 7 sisters, the Pleiades appears to have only 6 stars today. Okay, that is the change, but why did it change? Right? I don't think it's saying. In the time since ancient cultures described the Pleiades as having 7 stars, 2 of the cluster stars have moved so close together that they now appear as one. Why did it change? They move close together. That seems right. The Pleiades had 7 stars, but 2 are so close together that they appear to be a single star. That's not saying it changed, though. It's just saying it without getting the change across. So it's definitely C. The student wants to emphasize the significance of Ochoa's discovery. Okay, so why is it significant? See, we keep turning this into a question. Ochoa's 1955 discovery of this thing proved critical, so it's important, to deciphering the human genetic code, leading to a better understanding of how genetic variations affect human health. So why is it significant? It helped us decipher the code. That seems right. Ochoa first discovered this thing, an enzyme that he hypothesized contained, okay. So why was it significant? Well, he hypothesized, but we don't get the conclusion. I don't think that's right. I'll leave it in. In 1955, Ochoa discovered the thing which is involved in both the creation and degradation. See, it's not saying why it's important, though. Right? I want to see why is it significant. Though his discovery of this thing was critical to deciphering the human genetic code, okay, Ochoa incorrectly hypothesized that the enzyme was the source of, well, if it's incorrect, then why is that significant? Let's just make sure this isn't lying about anything. Better understanding, okay. Critical, deciphering genetic code. Deciphering the code has led to better understanding. It's literally the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing. That's it. Wants to emphasize the decline in unique apple varieties in the U.S. and specify why this decline occurred. Okay, so there's 2 goals. Emphasize the decline and specify why. Let's do this one first, because if this one seems more understandable. Why did it occur? The Lost Apple Project is dedicated to finding some of the apple varieties lost following a shift in agricultural practices. So why did it decline? Because there was a shift in agricultural practices. Maybe. While over 14,000 apple varieties were grown in the U.S. in the late 1890s, only 15 unique varieties make up most of the apples today. Why? Doesn't say. Since the rise of industrial agriculture, U.S. farmers have mainly grown the same few unique apple varieties, resulting in the loss of thousands of varieties less suitable for commercial growth. That seems like a reason. Yeah, maybe. As industrial agriculture rose to prominence in the mid-1900s, the number of crops selected for cultivation decreased dramatically. Okay, but it's not saying the apples specifically. So it wants to emphasize the decline in unique apple varieties and why the decline occurred. So the Lost Apple Project is dedicated to finding some of the apple varieties lost following a shift in... I mean, since the rise of agriculture, U.S. farmers have mainly grown this... Since the rise of industrial agriculture. So why did it decline? Because of the rise of industrial agriculture. Why did it decline? Because of a shift in agricultural practices. Those both seem fine. So it needs to emphasize the decline. This seems to be emphasizing the project. The loss of thousands. That's emphasizing the decline. This is a good one. I mean, there's a little bit of a debate, but if you really focus on the 2 goals, it's got to be that. So yeah, I mean, maybe I'd come back to this, but let's look at one. All right. In the early 1800s, the Cherokee scholar Sequoyah created the first script or writing system for an indigenous language in the United States because it represented the sounds of spoken Cherokee so accurately his script was easy to learn and thus quickly achieved blank use. By 1830, over 90%. So yeah, it's something like widespread. Perfect. Yeah, good, easy. Due to their often strange images, highly experimental syntax, and opaque subject matter, many of John Ashbery's poems can be quite difficult to understand, and thus are the object of heated debate. Interpret. Beginning in the 1950s, Navajo Nation legislator Annie Dodge Wanika continuously worked to promote public health. This continuous effort, see, they're just repeating things. Continuous effort involved traveling throughout the West Navajo homeland and writing a medical dictionary. So yes, and then continuous, persistent. Kelp forests grow underwater along the eastern Pacific coast. These underwater forests are important to fish and other marine animals. Ocean currents can be powerful and rough, making it difficult for animals to find safe places to hide from predators. The underwater forests slow down the currents. This creates a more blank environment with calmer waters. How about just a more calm environment? Tranquil. This repetition is just, especially in the first module, you got to take advantage. People sometimes dismiss a claim if it comes from a source they regard as self-interested, but from a strictly logical perspective, the source of a claim it has no direct bearing, is irrelevant. Irrelevant. Yeah. To be clear, I don't think I've ever seen this question. If I have no memory of it, but like, I don't know, you got to be able to read some of these and just know what they're saying. I don't know how to describe it other than it's like, It's just, I don't know. Pretend you're Chat GPT and you're filling in the blanks. You're just a word guessing machine. Sometimes you just know what the next word's going to be. Okay. Main purpose of the text. We're making really good time, right? Yeah. 27 questions, 32 minutes. So, okay. Main purpose. Jazz tap is a dance form that was first developed in African American communities. Jazz tap was heavily influenced by jazz music, which became widely popular in the United States in the 1920s. Tap dancers were inspired by jazz music's quick rhythms and by the way jazz musicians would make up melodies as they played. As jazz music continued to develop in the 1930s and 1940s, jazz tap evolved with it. Because of jazz music's influence, oh my God, say jazz again. Jazz tap quickly developed into a dance form that was very different from earlier kinds of tap dance. Okay, it's jazz and tap. It explains why audiences prefer some kinds of music to others. No, it does not. It discusses the development of a dance form. Maybe. Describes how to play a musical instrument. No, what's the instrument? It emphasizes the popular, who's the dancer? No, it's definitely this. All right, what's the development of the dance form, or what's the dance form? It's jazz tap. Main purpose. The speaker Tom is considering staging a play at home with a group of friends and family. We mean nothing but a little amusement among ourselves, just to vary the scene, and exercise our powers in something new. We want no audience, no publicity. We may be trusted, I think, in choosing some play most perfectly unexceptionable, and I can conceive no greater harm or danger in any of us in conversing in the elegant written language of some respectable author than in chattering in the words of our own. I don't know, they're going to put on a play. To offer Tom's assurance that the play will be inoffensive and involve only a small number of people. Okay, no audience, no publicity, so that's a small number of people. Is it inoffensive? Perfectly unexceptionable? Inoffensive is kind of a strong word, but okay. To clarify, the play will not be performed in the manner Tom had originally intended. Well, how did he originally intend it? He intended it with his friends and family. And it seems to be saying that still. So it seems like he's doing it as intended. To elaborate on the idea that the people around Tom lack the skills to... No, this is so negative. No, this is not a negative passage. To assert that Tom believes the group performing the play will be able to successfully promote it. No, they don't want to promote it. They want it to be small. So I guess it's inoffensive. Inoffensive maybe matches with unexceptionable. Yeah. Okay, fine. Okay, which statement? Okay, so we're just going to read these two in order, but we're still going to take some notes because this is one of those where you want to remember what you're doing. 8. So text 1. French Impressionist artist Edgar Degas insisted that his paintings be kept in their original frames after they were sold. Like many Impressionist painters, Degas used painted frames that stood in contrast to the gold frames frequently seen at the Paris Salon, a prestigious art exhibition that was sponsored by the French government and promoted traditional painting styles. Impressionist painters likely chose these colorful frames to distinguish themselves from what was considered conventional at the time. So the frame, important. Okay. 2. And right, what do they agree on? Impressionist painters often focused on the interplay of color and light in their works. As such, those Impressionists who placed their works in painted frames instead of the more traditional gold ones did so for aesthetic reasons. A frame's color was likely chosen because it would harmonize with the colors or subjects in a painting. Gold, conversely, could distract. So this is saying the same thing. They're both saying frame is important. Gold frames were considered especially desirable by those who purchased works from Impressionist painters. No, the point is they didn't like the gold frames. The colors in an Impressionist painting were often chosen to complement the colors of the frame it would be placed in. No, it's probably the other way around. The frame is chosen to complement the painting, but we'll leave that in. Many Impressionist painters were intentional about the frames they selected. Yeah, the frame is important. Intentional means they decided it wasn't an accident. Degas' preferred framing style was different from that of most. Well, most is scary, but they don't talk about Degas in the second one. So I'm pretty sure it's this. Many Impressionist painters were intentional, right? So insisted, yeah, he's insisting that they be in their original frame, so he cares. They did so for aesthetic reasons, meaning for how it looked. Yeah, that's easy. Describes Gibson's approach to art. So what is Gibson's approach to art? Choctaw Cherokee artist Jeffrey Gibson turns punching bags used by boxers into art by decorating them with beadwork and elements of native dressmaking. I remember this question because how do you forget punching bags turned into art? These elements include leather fringe and jingles, the metal cones that cover the dresses worn in the jingle dance, a women's dance of the Ojibwa people. Thus, Gibson combines an object commonly associated with masculinity, with art forms traditionally practiced by women in most Native communities. In this way, he rejects the division of male and female. So he's combining things, he's rejecting a division. So he's, anything that's about mixing things. He draws from traditional Native art forms. Yes, he does, I guess. But that doesn't seem to be the main point. He has been influenced by Native and non-Native artists equally, very scary word, quantify or get rid of it. He finds inspiration from boxing. No, he's not designing dresses, he's designing punching bags, right? He turns punching bags, he's not designing dresses. He rejects expectations about color and pattern when incorporating beadwork. I don't know. Rejects the division. But that's not rejecting the color and pattern. He's using the color and pattern commonly or traditionally practiced by women. It's not about color and pattern. So I guess it's A. He draws from traditional Native art forms to create his original works. Yeah, I mean, that's true. It's not what I would have said the main idea is, but certainly not this. Inspiration from, he's not designing dresses. Yeah. So this is why you don't bother making your own main idea sometimes. Yours is just not going to be what they say, but it doesn't mean that theirs is wrong or yours is wrong. All right, main idea. All right, maybe I got to pick up the pace. Believing that living in an impractical space can heighten the awareness and even improve health. Conceptual artists, whatever, designed an apartment building in Japan to be more fanciful than functional. A kitchen counter is chest high on one side and knee high on the other. A ceiling has a door to nowhere. The effect is disorienting but invigorating. After 4 years there, this person reported significant health benefits. So the weird apartment is good. Although inhabiting a home surrounded by fanciful features such as those designed by these people can be rejuvenating, is unsustainable. That sounds bad. Designing disorienting spaces like those in this building is the most effective way to create a physically stimulating environment. Nope, does not compare it to other things. As a filmmaker, this person has long supported the designs. No, is it bringing time? Although impractical, the design of the apartment building by these people may improve. Yeah. Yes, it's good. That's all it says. Directly support the team's idea. Many insects are iridescent or have colors that appear to shimmer and change when seen from different angles. Scientists have assumed that this feature helps to attract mates, but could also attract predators. But biologist Karen and a team had the idea that the shifting appearance of colors might actually make it harder for other animals to see iridescent insects. Okay, so this is the thing we need to support, right? Had the idea. So their idea is, this is 11. So shifting appearance of color. So more color equals fewer predators. Okay. To test this idea, the team put beetle forewings on leaves along a forest path and asked human participants to look for them. Some of the wings were naturally iridescent, others were painted with a non-changing color from the iridescent spectrum, such as purple or blue. Okay, so, support the team's ideas, right? So fewer humans. So iridescent equals fewer humans picking them up. On average, participants found most of the purple wings and blue wings and far fewer of the iridescent wings, right? That would make sense, because if we're supporting the idea, then the iridescent ones are harder to see. On average, participants found the iridescent wings faster than they found the purple wings. No, because that would mean that the iridescent wings are easier to see. We're trying to say that they're harder to see. Yeah, shifting colors. Some participants reported that the purple wings were easier. No, we're not comparing purple and blue. The purple and blue are the same. Some participants successfully found all the wings. No, who cares? Good for them. Next. Illustrates the claim. The character models a young boy who imagines that the people he sees passing the window of his home are carefree, even when engaged in work or chores, as is evident when he says to the daughter of a flower seller. Okay. I see you don't wish to stop. I don't care to stay on here either. Well, I don't see anything carefree there. Oh, flower gathering, that is why your feet seem so glad and your anklets jingle so merrily as you walk. Maybe that's carefree. And they're gathering flowers. Maybe that's work. I'll pay when I grow up before I leave to look for work out on the other side of the stream there. Is there anything carefree there? Or, well, that's like looking for work, but it's not engaged in work. Wish I could be out too. Then I would pick some flowers for you from the very topmost branches. So, okay. When he says to the daughter of a flower seller, okay. Carefree. That is why your feet seem so glad. That sounds carefree. and your anklets jingle so merrily. Yeah, that's carefree. And flower gathering, yeah, you're working. That's good enough. Okay. I've seen this question, the lizards. I still don't want to do it. Do we have any logically completes questions? Yeah, all right, here we go. Many mosquito repellents contain natural components that work by activating multiple odor receptors on mosquitoes' antennae. As the insects develop resistance, new repellents are needed. Ki Dong and her team found that EBF, a molecular component of a chrysanthemum flower extract, can repel mosquitoes by activating just one odor receptor, and this receptor is present in all mosquito species known to carry diseases. Therefore, the research suggests that in developing new repellents, it would be most useful to, I don't know, use this thing. Right, so use OR31. Identify molecular components similar to EBF that target the activation of OR31 receptors. That's the receptor. So they want to use EBF. Molecular components similar to EBF. Why do I need them to be similar? Why can't we just use EBF itself? I don't know. Investigate alternative methods for extracting EBF. Why? What's wrong with the method we have? Seems fine. Verify the precise location of, why does that matter? Who cares where the location is? Determine the maximum number of different odor receptors that can be activated with a single molecule. Who cares? That's quantifying. Identify molecular components similar to EBF that target the activation. Right? Because OR31 is really good, and we need to have multiple things because the insects develop resistance. So you need ones that are like EBF because they target something really good, but you need alternatives because they get resistant. So, okay, I guess that makes sense. This leafy spurge is a rear Asian plant that has become invasive in North America where it displaces native vegetation and sickens cattle. Iasula can be controlled with chemical herbicides, but that approach can also kill harmless plants nearby. Recent research on introducing engineered DNA into plant species to inhibit their reproduction may offer a path toward exclusively targeting Iasula consequently. Okay, so if you're only targeting that, what's the problem? You're inhibit their reproduction. So you're targeting Isula without killing other plants, right? Because you're not using herbicides anymore. Or sickening cattle. Let's see, making individual Isula plants more susceptible to existing. No, we're not using the herbicides. Enhancing the ecological benefits. No, it's a bad thing. We want to get rid of it. Enabling cattle to consume it without becoming sick, maybe. Reducing invasive Iasula numbers without harming other organisms. Ooh. Okay. It displaces native vegetation and sickens cattle. It can be controlled with chemical herbicides, but that approach can also kill harmless plants nearby. Recent research on introducing to inhibit their reproduction may offer a path. Okay, so we're not letting it grow. So we're not changing it whether or not it sickens cattle. It sickens cattle no matter what. We just want there to be less of it. So if we stop it from growing, it's more that they just wouldn't get sick because they're not eating it anymore. But really the problem is that you want to kill it, but you can't without using this herbicide. Yeah, that's the answer. People are going to pick the cattle thing though because they see that first. All right, let's go to this lizard thing. To investigate the effect, weaken. Ooh, see, this is why I got to read. Weaken the student's conclusion. To investigate the effect of lizard predation on spider populations, a student in a biology class placed spiders in 2 enclosures, one with lizards and one without, and tracked the number of spiders in the enclosures for 30 days. The student concluded that the reduction in the spider population count in the enclosure with lizards by day 30 was entirely attributable to the presence of the lizards. Okay, well, entirely is the problem there. Right, so what would weaken it? As long as it's not entirely attributable to the presence of the lizards. So that's the thing. So not entirely lizards. That would weaken the student's argument. It's such a strong argument. The spider population count was the same in both enclosures on day 1. Who cares? The spider population count was also substantially declined by day 30 in the enclosure without lizards, right? So something was killing them besides the lizards. The largest decline in spider population count in the enclosure with lizards occurred from day 1 to 10. So great, but that just could mean that the lizards are eating them. The spider population count on day 30 was lower in the enclosure with lizards than in the enclosure without. No, I mean, yes, that's true, but we want to say that it's not entirely the lizards. So this is saying that something else besides the lizards is killing them. Yeah, okay. Nothing really exciting here. I'm going to go back to these. In this thing, the guy challenged prevailing views. Specifically, he argued that instead of being shaped, yeah, that's a specifically. Similarly, it's not a similarly. Because it's the same argument. Right? It's the same argument. He challenged prevailing views. Similarly, he argued it's the same argument. It's not a similar argument. It's the same argument. So specifically, we're saying specifically what he said. Yeah, why the decline occurred? Why did the decline occur? Because of industrial agriculture. I wish they put this why in here. Emphasize the decline. If in order to emphasize, you got to say something like you're losing thousands of varieties. Yeah. So and why the decline occurred. And it does say the rise of industrial agriculture narrowed the range, right? I mean, it's using the same words. Same few unique apple varieties. Yeah, I'm good with it. All right. Not a lot of excitement here. Pretty straightforward section, you know, and I mean, that's how the first module should be. You can still see, though, even when it's a textbook reading section with not really any hard questions and just, you know, pretty straightforward grammar rules, all that, you're still not given, you're not going to have 10 minutes left. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I couldn't envision a world in which I've got 10 minutes like I do in the first math module. So I'm going to pause here and reset the video, and then we'll go to the hard module. All right, let's move on a little early to hard module. Here we go. All right, timing is going to definitely be harder here, so I'm going to be talking a little bit less, as always. We're going to still start with grammar, so we can lock in the easiest points. There's a grammar question. There's not one, so 15. This has to do with to and ing rules, sentence structure. In 1966, Emmett Ashford became the first African-American to umpire a Major League Baseball game. His energetic gestures announcing when a player had struck out and his habit of barreling after a hit ball to see if it would land out of bounds helped transform the traditionally solemn umpire role into a dynamic one. I've seen this question before, but it's pretty obvious it's helped because his energetic gestures and his habit helped. That's the sentence. I've seen this question before too. I recognize that name, but either way, it's in a positive and it's almost certainly this answer, but let's take a look. In a pivotal 2007 article, plant cell biologist Yuri Lee showed that lipid molecules called whatever. Okay, yeah, good enough. Yep, no commas. Ooh, this is an interesting one. Probably this is either a to and ing, but without the to and the ing, or this is a past, present, future. So let's see. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, automobiles were commonly referred to as horseless carriages after the older technology they still resembled. Known as the brass era, this period in automotive design is remembered for its grandeur and artistry, its vehicles highly prized by collectors for their ornate detailing and gleaming brass fittings. This is weird. Basically, anything else is going to give us a run-on sentence because this period in automotive design is remembered for its grandeur and artistry. That's a sentence. Its vehicles are highly prized by collectors. That's a sentence. Its vehicles had been highly prized by collectors. That's a sentence. Its vehicles were highly prized. That's a sentence. Only C is going to remove that and make this an extra clause. Tricky, but it's basically anything with verbs where you don't. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it now. I got to keep moving. All right, so first let's look at these two and see if we need a semicolon for two sentences. They were not the first in England to adopt the literary modes of classical antiquity. That's a sentence. Some of the most prominent figures of the earlier Renaissance period were also influenced by Greek and Roman literature. That's a sentence, so that gets rid of these two. And then we need to put the however in whichever sentence has the contrast. During the English neoclassical period, many writers imitated the epic poetry and satires of ancient Greece and Rome. But they were not the first in England to adopt the literary modes of classical antiquity. Some of the most prominent figures of the early Renaissance period were also influenced. So however has to go in the second sentence. That is C. I've seen this question before too. Moving on. Oh, another one of these. So we got to look at these two, see if they're sentences. Economists have observed that improvements in efficiency often correlate negatively with resource conservation. That's a sentence. Efficiency gains, lowering the cost of use, may increase demand to the extent that resource consumption ultimately rises. Is that a sentence? Efficiency gains may increase demand. That sounds like a sentence, right? Let me just double check. Economists have observed that improvements in efficiency often correlate negatively with resource conservation. Yeah, it's a sentence. So it's just where does this? It's the same as the last question. With the development of new technologies that use natural resources more efficiently, the overall consumption of those resources might be expected to decrease. But economists have observed that improvements in efficiency often correlate negatively with resource conservation. Right? Is that right? It is expected to decrease, but improvements in efficiency correlate negatively, meaning it goes down. Yeah, plus I don't think this one would work because then we would be saying, though, efficiency gains may increase. That's not a sentence then. Yeah, this is sneaky, but I'm pretty sure it's this. Singular, plural, 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 so it's probably this. The 20th century Kashmiri American poet, whatever, explains that each of a ghazal's couplets, while adhering to the patterns of rhyme and refrain established in the poem's opening lines, is thematically and logically autonomous. So each one is, yeah. Okay. In November 1934, Amrita Sher Gill was living in what must have seemed like the ideal city for a young artist, Paris. She was studying firsthand the color-saturated style of France's modernist masters and beginning to make a name for herself as a painter. Sher Gill longed to return to her childhood home of India. Okay, this is a however. But she liked it, but she wanted to go to India. So still, yeah, but. Yeah, good. Researchers Helena whatever, okay, report that while mathematicians may have traditionally worked alone, evidence points to a shift in the opposite direction. Mathematicians are choosing to collaborate, so this is kind of like so, or in other words, a trend illustrated by a rise in the number of mathematicians. Okay, a shift. So increasingly, ooh, that's a weird one. Increasingly, right, because there's a shift in the opposite direction, so there's a trend. Increasingly, mathematicians are choosing to collaborate. Yeah, I feel like I've seen this question too. Okay. The prime meridian, the global indicator of 0 degrees longitude established in 1884, was originally determined using astronomically derived coordinates. As decades passed, new calculations would reveal increasingly precise coordinates, yet the prime meridian remained unchanged. It wasn't until the 1980s that, spurred by improved geodetic data, the prime meridian was officially moved roughly 100 meters east. Okay. Was originally determined using astronomically derived coordinates. Could that be it? Because time is passing, right? So that's a time one. Right? They was originally determined using okay, again and again as decades pass, new calculations. So basically, repeatedly as decades pass, new calculations would reveal increasing precise. Yeah. So because they kept doing it. But it wasn't until the 1980s, right? So specifically, it's not a specifically, for example, because the decades passing is not an example of what they did originally. Gone. Granted means like but. So determined using astronomy. But as decades pass, new calculations increasingly precise. Yeah. Ooh, it could be that. But it wasn't see, I want to put the but here. Ooh, a prime meridian. To that end would be like, for this purpose, was originally determined using, so to that end, meaning for achieving that goal. But like, what's the goal there? To that end, as decades passed, would reveal increasingly precise coordinates, yet the prime meridian remained unchanged. Ooh, I don't know. Because it's unchanged. It was originally determined. It's not to that end. Again and again, as decades pass. Granted, as decades pass, new calculations will change, yet. So here's my but. So do I need another but? But as decades pass, new calculations would reveal increasingly precise coordinates. I don't know. This seems such like a stupid thing to pick. Again and again, as decades pass, new calculations would reveal increasingly precise coordinates, yet the prime meridian remained unchanged. All right, let's move on. How pineapple extract increased the growth? I've definitely seen this question before. Researchers in Indonesia recently found that adding pineapple extract to fish food increased the growth rate. How? How did it increase the growth rate? An enzyme in pineapple extract, whatever, increased the growth rate by enhancing the hydrolysis of ingested proteins, in turn affecting the fish's total food consumption. Okay, maybe. According to the researchers, growth rate of peach was affected not by food consumption, but by feed utilization efficiency. So how did it increase the growth rate? It increased, I don't know, this feels bad wrong. The enzyme bromelain enhanced this thing's absorption of ingested proteins, increasing the growth rate of fish-fed pineapple extract. These seem to be the same or have different things. So how did it do it? Adding pineapple extract to fish food increased both the feed utilization efficiency and the growth rate. It did not affect total food consumption. The increased growth rate resulted from the increased feed utilization. Oh, so it's saying this. The enzyme bromelain enhances this. This allows the fish to more readily absorb them. Increase the growth rate by enhancing the hydrolysis of ingested proteins, in turn affecting the fish's total food consumption. No, it's saying did not affect total food consumption. So this is just wrong. But it's affected not by food consumption, but by feed utilization. Okay. This doesn't really say the how, though. The enzyme bromelain enhanced this thing's absorption of ingested proteins. Yes. Increasing the growth rate of fish. Okay, I feel like that's it. Student wants to explain an advantage. Despite being heavy, NASA's rovers can land successfully on the surface of Mars. Nope. Microbes, which weigh as little as 50 microprobes, could explore areas of Mars that are inaccessible. Okay, maybe that's an advantage. NASA currently uses its rovers on Mars, but microprobes have proposed. Okay, but why is it? What's the advantage? They are different sizes. Okay, this is the only one that has an advantage. Student wants to emphasize the student's methodology, right? What are the steps they did? The student police policies of 132 medical schools can be found online. Okay, but what's the methodology? To find out how many medical schools have guidelines about student social media use, they examine the student policies. Okay, that's a methodology. Out of 132 medical schools, only 13 had student policies that mention social media. No, that's a finding. Terry Kahn and her team wanted to know how many medical schools have social media policies, and yeah, but that's not the methodology. Okay. The student wants to make a generalization about the kind of study that these people did. Based on statistical analysis, these people claim that John Lennon wrote the verse. Okay, that's a kind of study, a statistical study. There's only an 18.9% probability that he wrote it. John Lennon is the more likely author. So what kind of study was it? I have no idea. It is likely that John Lennon, that's a finding. Researchers have used statistical methods to address questions of authorship. I mean, that's not talking about them specifically. It's got to be this. Researchers have used statistical methods to address research questions of authorship. Right? What kind of study did they use? A statistical analysis. And did it claim wrote the verse? Yeah. Okay. I feel like I'm a little behind schedule here. Let's go to this. Critics have asserted that fine art and fashion rarely, oh, this is such a famous question. It's intersect, I think. In a world where artists create timeless works for exhibition and designers periodically produce new styles for the public to buy. These people challenges this view. Her work can be seen and, okay, so they rarely intersect. This person has got art and clothes. So they rarely meet. And so, yeah, this is such a dumb question. I'm getting an advantage here for this one. Barring major archaeological discoveries, we are unlikely to ever have blank account of ancient Egypt under the female pharaoh Hatshepsut, as much of the evidence of her reign was deliberately destroyed by her successors. We are unlikely to have a good account of ancient Egypt, an exhaustive account because it's thorough, an imaginative, a superficial, a questionable. Now it's this. The work of Kiowa painter T.C. Cannon derives its power in part from the tension among his blank influences. Classic European portraiture with his relative faces, American pop art movement with the colors. Okay, so it's a mixture. The work derives power in part from the tension among his different influences. Disparate, so unknown, interchangeable. Complementary means they work together. But tension sounds like they're not working together. So disparate is better. Proposals to raise the age at which retirees begin receiving government transfers of funds are generally discussed in terms of the effects on transfer recipients, but Andrea Smythe has argued that delaying such transfers could blank wealth creation among working adults by lengthening the period in which they are providing financial support to their non-working parents. So it could lengthen or it could harm wealth creation. Stymie. Yes, that means stop. Yes. Compound wealth creation. That means it's good. Disparage. You're not insulting it. Outstrip. Just doesn't even make any sense. Okay. Overall structure. Atlanta and Ronaldo are neighbors who have been secretly exchanging letters. Okay. Atlanta gave this letter to Charlotte, who immediately ran into the balcony with it, where she still found Ronaldo in a melancholy posture, leaning his head on his hand. She showed him the letter, but was afraid to toss it to him for fear it might fall to the ground. So he ran and fetched a long cane, which he cleft at one end and held it while she put the letter on the cleft and stayed not to hear what he said to it. But never was man so transported with joy as he was at reading this letter. It gives him new wounds, for to the generous nothing obliges love so much as love. Okay, overall structure is she comes up with a letter and he reads the letter. Describes the delivery of a letter and Patricia characters happening. Yeah. Establishes that character is desperate to receive a letter, and then explains why another character is not yet written. No, there is a letter. It presents a character's concerns about delivering a letter and then details the contents. No, what are the contents? It doesn't say. It reveals the inspiration behind a character's letter. No, it doesn't. And then emphasizes the excitement that another character feels upon receiving. What's the inspiration? Nothing. It's delivery of a letter portrays the character's happiness. Yep. Function. Lily had no real intimacy with nature, but she had they're walking through a park. Lily had no real intimacy with nature, but she had a passion for the appropriate and could be keenly sensitive to a scene which was the fitting background of her own sensations. The landscape outspread below her seemed an enlargement of her present mood. That sounds important. And she found something in herself in its calmness, its breadth, its long free reaches. Of the nearer slopes, the sugar maples wavered like pyres of light, lower down the Mexican gray orchards. And yeah, okay, so the landscape is helping her feel good. Creates a detailed image of the physical setting. Maybe. I mean, it's much more about her than about the setting. It establishes the character's experience an internal conflict. Doesn't seem like a conflict. She seems just happy. Makes an assertion that the next sentence then expands on. What's the assertion? It's an enlargement of her present mood. The next sentence is not expanding on that. It's just a description. I don't think that's right. It illustrates the ideas introduced in the previous sentence. Right. It's sensitive to assume which is the fitting background for her own sensations, right? So the background and her feelings are the same. This is reiterating that. Yes. Cool. Which choice best describes the function of the underlined sentence? Okay. Several studies have found negligible electoral consequences for governments that impose fiscal austerity measures, yet some European governments recently suffered electorally due to their austerity programs. These are just two contradictory things. This person attributed this incongruity to government's tendency, not followed in the recent European cases, to implement austerity programs strategically to avoid electoral costs, setting spending cuts to take effect only after the next election, which has obscured the inherent political risks of austerity measures in the election data scholars examined. Okay, so it's like a claim that's then explained here. It explains a discrepancy between what has been observed in study settings and what has been observed in real-world settings that the text goes on to assert is attributable to the studies, not using real world data. Well, they are using data. They're just using it incorrectly. So I don't love that. It identifies a conflict between research findings and recent events that the text goes on to suggest is a consequence of a complicating factor in the data used to generate those findings. The complicating factor is the time of these consequences versus the thing. Yeah, okay. It presents a longstanding divergence, in research findings that the text goes on to say is due to different groups of researchers. No, using data from different, no, it's not different researchers. It describes a recent exception to a general pattern. It's not a recent exception. In research findings that the text goes on to explain as a result of researchers underestimating the significance of inconsistency. No, it's not, the data's not bad. They're just using the data wrong. Yeah. All right, we got to keep moving. I mean, I might come back and look at this again, but I'm not going to have time. Main idea. Yeah, we got to keep moving. 18th century economist Adam Smith is famed for his metaphor of the invisible hand, which he putatively used to illustrate a robust model of how individuals produce aggregate benefits by pursuing their own economic interests. Note putatively. As Gavin Kennedy has shown, Smith deploys this metaphor only once in his economic writings to make a narrow point about the then dominant economic theory of mercantilism, and was largely ignored until some 20th century economists eager to secure an intellectual pedigree for their views elevate it to a fully fledged paradigm. Okay, so there's he's famous for something, but he only did it once. So he's famous for something he shouldn't be famous for. Although Smith is famed for his metaphor of the invisible hand, the metaphor was largely ignored until economists in the 20th century came to realize that the metaphor was a robust model that anticipated their own views. Maybe, I don't know if it's I don't think they're saying it's robust. They're eager to secure an intellectual pedigree. They're using it to make themselves sound smarter. So that's not quite the same. Some 20th century economists gave Smith's metaphor of the invisible hand a significance it does not have in Smith's work, but it is nevertheless a useful model of how individuals produce aggregate benefits by pursuing their own economic interests. Well, it doesn't sound like they're saying it's useful, right? They're saying it's a very narrow point. That sounds bad. Smith's metaphor of the invisible hand has been interpreted as a model of how individuals acting in their own interests produce aggregate benefits, but it was intended as a subtle critique of the economic theory of mercantilism. Okay. Yeah. That sounds better. The reputation of Smith's metaphor of the invisible hand is not due to the importance of the metaphor in Smith's work, but rather to the promotion of the metaphor by some later accounts of their own ends. That's even better. So then what's wrong with C? I don't like, all right. So this is, it's not robust. They're using it for their own reasons. It never was a useful model of how it's not useful. They're saying it's bad. Smith's metaphor of the invisible hand has been interpreted as a model of how individuals acting in their own interests produce aggregate benefits. A subtle critique of the economic theory. He uses to describe and illustrate a robust model of how individuals produce aggregate benefits by pursuing their own economic interests. Is it a critique of mercantilism? It doesn't really say that. The reputation of Smith's metaphor of the invisible hand is not due to the importance of the metaphor in Smith's work. It's not due to that, but rather to the promotion of the metaphor by some later accounts of their own ends. I like that, but I'm having trouble getting rid of C. I don't love that this first part, the reputation of the metaphor, is not due to the importance of the metaphor in Smith's work. I mean, that seems like it's suggesting something we don't know, but let's move on. Effectively, it's just a claim. In the poem, he deeply understands the reader whom he addresses directly. Okay. Your true soul and body appear before me. That sounds like he's directing us, directly talking to us, and deeply understands. Whoever you are, now I place my hand upon you that you may be my poem. I don't know what that is. I should have made my way straight to you long ago. No understanding. Whoever you are, I fear you are walking the walks of dreams. Yeah, definitely that. Oh, I've done this question before. The marmots, I've done this. Okay. And that my memory now is that it's not that bad. Support the research hypothesis. While hibernating, lots of marmots and Arctic ground squirrels enter a state called torpor, which minimizes the energy their body needs to function. Often a hibernating animal will temporarily come out of torpor, and its metabolic rate will rise, burning more of the precious energy the animal needs to survive the winter. Alaskan marmots hibernate in groups and therefore burn less energy keeping warm during these episodes than they would if they were alone. A researcher hypothesized that because Arctic ground squirrels hibernate alone, they would likely exhibit longer bouts of torpor and shorter arousal episodes. So the ground squirrels Arctic ground squirrels hibernate alone. So squirrels equal longer bouts of torpor, so more torpor, and shorter arousal, less arouse. So that means the marmots are the opposite. Less torpor, more arousal. Okay, the rascal marmot's arousal episodes lasted for days, okay, while the Arctic ground squirrel's arousal episodes lasted less than a day. That sounds good. The Alaska marmots and the Arctic ground squirrels both maintained torpor for several... No, that's saying they're the same. The Alaska marmots had shorter torpor bouts, marmots shorter torpor, and longer arousal episodes than the Arctic ground squirrels did. That also sounds good. The Alaska marmots had more torpor bouts, but then arousal episodes, but the arousal episodes were more shorter. No, we don't want to compare them with that. So what's the wrong problem with A? Alaska marmots arousal episodes, marmots arousal episodes lasted for days. No, they didn't. So let's make sure this is right. The Alaska marmots had shorter torpor bouts. So Alaska marmots, shorter torpor bouts. Yep. And longer arousal episodes. Yes. Done. We support the researcher's hypothesis. Okay. In the mountains of Brazil, these things, two plants establish themselves on soilless, nutrient-poor patches of quartzite rock. Plant ecologist Anna, whatever, used microscopic analysis to determine that the roots of these things, which grow directly into the quartzite, have clusters of fine hairs near the root tip. Further analysis indicated that these hairs secrete both malic and citric acids. The researchers hypothesized that the plants depend on dissolving underlying rock with these acids, as the process not only creates channels for continued growth, but also releases phosphates that provide the vital nutrient phosphorus. So the hairs equal acid, which equals growth and nutrients, right? So channels for growth and nutrients. Okay, support it. Other species in this family are found in terrains with more soil, but have root structures similar to those. Okay, so then they don't need it for the growth, but they need it for the nutrients, maybe? I don't know. Though these things both secrete citric and malic acid, each species produces the acids in different proportions. Who cares? The roots of this carve new entry points into rocks even when cracks in the surface are readily available because they need to do it to get the nutrients. That seems good. Thrive even when transferred to the surfaces of rocks that do not contain phosphates. Well, then they're thriving because of something that has nothing to do with the nutrients. So I think it's this, because they're carving into the rock regardless of whether there's... So they do it for two reasons. They do it for growth and nutrients. So this is saying, it not only creates channels. So they're really emphasizing this, the nutrient piece here. So this is also doing that, is that they're doing it for the nutrients. Yeah. I've seen this question before too, because that stupid chart is so big. It doesn't fit on, on my screen usually. Okay. All right, we gotta move. We gotta hustle. Okay. Let's do this. 13. A team of biologists led by these people investigate the mechanism that allows Bellcrest plants to accelerate flowering at high temperatures. They replace the protein ELF3 in the plants with a similar protein found in another species that, unlike this thing, displays no acceleration of flowering with increased temperature. Okay. A comparison of unmodified Thelania plants with the altered plants showed no difference in flowering at 22, but at 27, the unmodified plants exhibited accelerated flowering while the altered ones did not, which suggests that. Okay, so accelerate flowering at high temperature. So normally, the control is going to be increase temp, increase flowers. Okay. Then they replace this thing with a similar protein, no acceleration with the increased temperature. So this is the ELF ones, right? Or no ELF. They don't have the ELF. With a similar protein, no acceleration. Comparison with the altered plants showed no difference in flowering at 22, but at 27, the unmodified plants, right? So this is saying increased temp equals no change in flowering. Okay. This suggests that temperature sensitive accelerated flowering is unique. No, it could. This is just no. It's not unique. Eighth line, increases ELF presence as temperatures rise. I don't know if they can do that. ELF 3 enables this thing to respond to increased temperatures. Yeah, right? Because if you take it away, it doesn't respond. Temperatures, no. So it's this. Okay. 14. Okay. I've seen like all these questions before. I mean, I don't have a memory of the answers, but still. Domestic sweet potato descends from a wild plant native to South America. It also populates the Polynesian islands, where evidence confirms that native Hawaiians and other indigenous peoples were cultivating the plant centuries before seafaring first occurred over the thousands of miles of ocean separating them from South America. So, potato. So South America goes to the potato, where evidence confirms that native Hawaiians and other indigenous people were cultivating the plant before seafaring first occurred. So then before migration there, right? To explain how the sweet potato first introduced to Polynesia, botanists, whatever, analyzed the DNA. It's clear that Polynesian varieties diverged from South American ones over 100,000 years ago. Given that Polynesia was peopled only the last 3,000 years, this team, okay, so that the potato before people, right? The potato got there before the people got there. That's basically what it's saying. The cultivation of sweet potato in Polynesia likely predates its cultivation in South America. No. Polynesian people likely acquired the sweet potato from South American peoples only within the last 3,000 years. No, because they're using the Polynesian variety. Human activity likely played no role. Yes. Polynesian sweet potato variety is likely descended from a single. No, that's too specific. Yeah, okay. All right, this stupid one. I forget the deal. Complete the statement. Okay. Over the past 200 years, the percentage of the population employed in the agricultural sector has declined in both France and the United States, while employment in the service sector, which includes jobs in retail, consulting, and reselling, has risen. However, this transition happened at very different rates in the two countries. This can be seen most clearly by comparing the employment. Okay, so this is, what do we have to focus on? There's too much stuff here. So agriculture has declined in both France. So less agriculture, and the United States, while employment in the service sector has risen. So more service. However, this transition happened at very different rates. So the key is that the rates are different. So this is a France versus US thing. Okay. 1900. Okay. Oh my God. So I don't care about this manufacturing one, right? And I think, yeah, see, this is mean for them to do this. There's a whole other part of this chart you just don't see. So 1900s with the employment by sector. So 43 to 32, 41 to 14, those are different, right? And then 28 to 35, 31 to 50, those are different. That seems right. So 1800 to 12, okay, so 64 to 3. So 68 to 2, that's kind of the same. And 14 to 76, 13 to 8, that's kind of the same too. 1900 with 2012. 19, so 43 to 3, 41 to 2, kind of the same. 28 to 76, 31, yeah, kind of the same. And 1800 with employment in 19. So 64 to 3, 64 to 43, 68, yeah, kind of the same. 14 to 28. Yeah, that's kind of the same. So it's that. Okay. They rarely intersect because now this person is letting them intersect. Okay. I just still hate that question. I know there's a conflict between research findings and recent events that the text goes on to suggest as a consequence. Yeah, I think that's right. A complicating factor. They're just doing their classic SAT thing here and using a stupidly vague phrase. Is not due to the importance of the metaphor in Smith's work, but rather to the promotion of the metaphor. Yeah, for their own ends. It's the end part of that choice that really does it for me. Because that's what the end of this passage is saying. It's the first part is not due to the importance of the metaphor in Smith's work. Because they're saying that he's doing it only once and it's narrow. So they're saying it's not important in his own work. What's wrong with C? has been interpreted as a model of how individuals acting in their own interests aggregate benefits. I don't. Yeah, I guess no choice. I'm going to stick with that. But yeah, I mean, hard. I recognize a lot of those questions. I didn't know the answers, but still, it makes a difference. But for most of you, I think a lot of those, I think that should feel like a real test. If you've never done tests 1, 2, or 3, then that should have felt like a real reading section. It's pretty, it's a good mix of hard words, a couple of hard grammar rules, some of those weird outlines, some passages that were dense and difficult to get through, but also as many that were easy. So you got to do what I do and kind of jump around. So I'm going to take a break and then we'll do the math. But it's possible I got one wrong in there. I feel like there was, I wouldn't be surprised if I got an outline wrong, which would kill me. But we'll see. We'll see after the math is done. All right, here's something I'm really curious about. I'm not sure if when you take a practice test, does it automatically resume to the next section? We're going to find out. I've never actually waited the full 10 minutes for these breaks. So let's see what happens. Okay, so I've heard stories that on the real test, this screen does not appear, where you kind of still get more time before you start the math section. I'm pretty sure that what actually happens is that once those 10 minutes are up for the break, once that timer that was just on the screen goes away, math section starts. You're done. It automatically goes in. And the reason I've heard about this is that I had a student who was taking a longer break than they should have. They weren't wearing a watch or anything like that could tell them how much time they had spent going to the bathroom or whatever. And so they ended up coming back and their test had already restarted. Now, the first math module, if you're pretty good at math, isn't going to be that big of a deal. If you lost 5 minutes, honestly, you could still be fine. But it's a good reminder, like you gotta make sure you understand how this stuff works before you take a real test. So this is, it should say something here. I wish the College Board would make an adjustment and say, note, this screen would not appear on a real test. You will need to restart as soon as the timer is over. That would be helpful so that people don't get used to this. But hopefully now you know. I think that's the experience. And in my memory of it, and feel free to comment if you had that same experience. I think during the real test, what happens is, everyone's kind of back at the same time. And then since everyone's kind of taking their break at the same time, all those break clocks kind of reset at the same time as well. So everyone just ends up starting up again. Anyway, there's just something to know. Let's get into it. For a particular machine that produces beads, 29 of every 100 beads it produces have a defect. A bead produced by the machine will be selected at random. What is the probability of selecting a bead that has a defect? So 29 out of 100. That's it. Just make sure they're not saying which ones don't have a defect. And they say what has a defect? This one has a defect. Okay, 29 of 100. The equation gives the speed in miles per hour of a certain car t seconds after it began to accelerate. What is the speed in miles per hour of the car 5 seconds it began? So let's just plug points in. So 40 plus 15 is 55. 40 plus 15, right? The speed, the car 5 seconds, t seconds, 40 plus 15. 4x equals 3, what is the value of 24x? So you don't even get the fraction here, just multiply, right? How do we get from 4 to 24? You multiply by 6. So 3 times 6 is 18. Represents the line of best fit. So it's a positive slope. So that gets rid of this and this. And it has a positive y-intercept. So there you go. Yeah. What percentage or size? Okay. So here, anytime there's percents, I don't care how easy the question is, I'm always going to my open formula because I'm always afraid of making a mistake. So of the 300,000 paper clips, so of is always pointing me to my original number. We don't know the percentage, so that's our P. And then our new value is 234. Okay, so I could get rid of the 100,000s here, but regardless, we're going to divide. So divide by 300,000, divide by 300,000. P is, so 234 divided by 300 is 0.78. So remember, that's 78% because we're always working with the formula with percents as decimals. So what percent are the size are size large? Yeah, right. That's what they wanted. So just make sure you're size large. That's the only thing. Looks like a plug points into equations. Yeah, what represents the relationship? So 0, 18 means we're going to get rid of that and that really fast. And then let's put in 1. 18 plus 18 is not 13. Negative 5 plus 18 is. Done. Plug points into equations. Plug points into equations again, right? So we could use the calculator here for sure. And I'll probably come back and do that later. But f of 2 is 2 squared plus 2 plus 71. So 4 plus 73 is 77. Okay. And like I said, we're going to come back because that's so easy to put in the calculator. Might as well. We're going to have a million minutes to do it. Okay. So this is all about exponent rules, which when you are multiplying two things at the same base, you add the exponents. So 4 and 1 is 5. Oh, so that already gets me to B. 4 and 5 is 9. Yep. And negative 1 and 3 is 2. Yeah, okay. Okay. I always draw these out. Okay, so ABC is similar. Are there any right angles anywhere? No. Okay, so we've got ABC, A, B, C. How do I want to do this? I think I'm going to do it this way. X, Y, Z. I'm going to put them on the same picture. The length of AB is 170, so that's here. And the length of BC is 850, so that's here. In the length, the length of YZ is 60, so YZ is in here. So let's put it like this, right? The outside is ABC, the inside is XYZ, and they want to know XY, which is right here. So I could have easily drawn two triangles, but I like this because it lets me set my thing up, right? So XY is what I want to know. That matches up with the 170 in the same way that 60 matches up with the 850. So let's just multiply both sides by 170, crosses out, crosses out. 60 times 170 divided by 850 is 12. All right. Seems small, but 850 is way bigger than 170. So 60 is way bigger than 12. Seems right. Okay. All right, this is definitely an arithmetized situation. I see a lot of letters, and probably most of them don't matter. What is the value of n? So that means x and y don't matter. So let's make x 4 and y 1. So that holds true. And then they want 24 like that is 4. Right? X, y. So x is 4, y is 1. Yep. And so we have 4n. So up here, 4n is equal to 24 times 4, which if you divide by 4 is going to cross out. So n is 24. Yeah, and that makes sense because then they would reduce and that would be fine. So yeah, it makes sense. You could think about this without doing the arithmetize, but for every time you think about one of these without an arithmetize and you get it right, there's going to be another one where you kind of skip the arithmetize and get it wrong. So just be safe and do the arithmetize. Okay. The function W models the volume of liquid. Okay. What is the predicted volume of meters draining from the container each second? -4, because it's a slope. T seconds each second, 4 seconds. Yeah, just understand lines. Okay. Here's this thing. For how many values of x does f of x equal 0? 1, 2, 3. Right? F of x is y, so y is 0 at 3 spots. 1, 2, 3. So none of this matters. Okay. A conservation scientist implemented a program to reduce the population of a certain species in an area. The given function estimates the species population X years after 2008. Which of the following is the best interpretation of 3000? That's the y-intercept. So that is the starting value at it's 2008. So the estimated percent decrease, no, it's a starting point. The estimated percent decrease, no. The estimated population and areas in the species in area 8 years after 2008, no. Estimated initial population, yes, when t is 0, x is 0. Yes. Okay. There are so many ways to do a question like this, but it takes no effort to put it in Desmos, and I want to rest my brain a little bit, so we're going to do that. Plus 22. Okay, right, x squared minus 14x plus 22. So where's my minimum? It's right here. And for what value of x does the value of y reach its minimum? So they want the x, which is 7. Cool. All right. I don't know if I've seen this question before, but I've definitely seen this trap before. A square A has side lengths that are 166 times the side length of square B. The area of square A is k times the area of square B. If you put 166 here, you are a fool. And I know that that's kind of mean, but you should know better. Unless this is your first day on planet Earth and you've never heard of an SAT until someone just threw one in front of you, there's no reason you should do this wrong. So square A has side lengths that are 166 times the square lengths of B. So let's do B as 1 by 1. So the area is 1. So A is going to have 166 because what is 166? Or 166 times 1 is 166. So 166 squared is 27556. The area of square A, this, is k times 1. Well, 27556. 27556. That's it. Yeah, it takes 2 seconds to arithmetize this, but people get it wrong because they just don't understand there's a clear trap here. Okay, solution is AB. What is the value of B? Okay, so anytime I have complicated systems of equations, I'm going to go to Desmos. Now, the problem is if I type this in exactly as written, it's not going to let me do it because it doesn't know what A and B are. This isn't the AB plane. This is the XY plane. So let's just convert it to X's and Y's. So 8Y equals 198. And they kind of did that. Look, AB is the point. So 2x plus 8y equals 198. So that seems good. 2x plus, 2x plus 4y equals 98. And they want to know the value of B. So what is the y coordinate where they intersect? Okay, make sure you get that. And it's close on purpose. So the y coordinate is 25. And I come back to this. I'm going to have so much time, so I'm going to come back to this and solve this algebraically later just for the sake of doing something else. But 2x plus 8y is 198. 2x plus 4y is 98. Same things. Good. Cool. What is the y-intercept? Just plug points into equations, right? And I could do this in Desmos as well, but it takes 2 seconds to do x is 0, so -8 times 2 to the 0 is 1 plus 22. So 22 minus 8 is 20 minus 6, which is 14. I'll just check this one now because I'm feeling a little iffy on that mental math. So f of x equals -8 times 2 to the x plus 22. And I said it was 14. Yep, there it is, 14. Good. Done. Increase of, okay, plug points into equations. Don't complicate things. Plug points into equations. You're given equations in the choices, you're given a point. What is the point? The point is 0 to 100, right? They wrote it stupidly, but that's the point. So if I plug in 0, this is going to become 0. If I plug in 0 here, I'm going to get 4. And then this would give me 0 as well. So 200, 4 to the 0, so that's 200 times 1. It's the only one that works. So this whole thing about increasing, okay, for each increase of 1, the value of y increases by a factor of 4. That is just telling you this. It means you're multiplying by 4 for every 1 that you increase it, which is true because that's how exponents work. But that's a confusing sentence that's going to throw people off when if you just think plug points into equations, it's a point, plug it in, it only works in 1. So easy. What is the value of sine of 42 pi? I don't know. Let's find out. Sine of 42 pi is 0. I mean, The only thing you could think of is like, what if they meant degrees? But obviously they don't, because if you look at settings, we're in radians. Now, if we were in degrees, we'd get a different answer. But that's not any of these. So square root of 2 divided by 2 is some other 0.7 number. But yeah, I guess we're supposed to know it's radians just because it has a pi in it. I don't really know the rules about that. But generally, if it's got a pi, it's a certain number of radians. And obviously, if it has a symbol with the degrees, then it's degrees. So maybe it's more that if it had the degree symbol, then we would know it's degrees. But remember, just like any calculator, it defaults to radians. So you just got to remember that. If you are going to type in some trig here, then there you go. What could they possibly want us to do here besides just type that in the calculator? I'm going to come back to this and see if there's some other method, but there's no reason to not use the calculator. No solutions. Okay, so this is telling me that these are lines that are parallel. Since this is a guess and check situation, I'm not going to do any algebra. Let's just type it and watch for our own with our own eyes the lines being parallel or not. 9y plus 5, 4x minus 9y equals 9y plus 5. Yep. hy equals 2 plus 4x. Add a slider for h, and then just type it. I hate, by the way, drives me nuts that this thing comes up every time, and I don't know how to make it go away, and I can't see all this other stuff. And I can't make it the only way to make it bigger is to do this, which now, what good does this do me? It covers the entire thing. So, come on, SAT, College Board, do better. Just take one of these yourself and realize how annoying it is, and then design a way that it's not annoying. It's not hard. All right, anyway, -9 as my h gets me lines that clearly cross, but they need to have no solution, so that doesn't work. And h of 0, clearly cross, no. H of 9, clearly cross, no. 18. They look pretty parallel to me. There you go. Now, if we didn't have answer choices, we'd have to do this by getting the slopes of the lines. It's still not that hard. And this is a topic the SAT is going to ask about every single SAT, so you better know it. Alrighty then. Okay, as a constant was about, again, I'm going to just guess and check here. I could do some quadratic formula, or I can just type it. So x squared minus 2x minus 9. Let's leave that as a parabola because it's equal to 0. So we'll just leave that. And then we'll do one solution. So x equals 1 plus square root of k. And it's interesting that it's actually graphing that, but let's do k equals and do 8. Okay, so what I want is I want this red line to pass right through the x-intercept. So it's not doing that there. If I go to 10, it is. If I go to 20, it's not. And obviously, if I go to 40, it's not either. So I'll come back to this and do the quadratic formula if I need to, but you don't need to. There's really no reason to be getting anything wrong in this first module. Even this, right? What do I see here? Okay. I've done this question before, but even if I hadn't, it's so obvious what I would do, right? We have a positive constant. That means that C can be any number. So we can just see what it is using arithmetize here. So let's just type this whole thing out. And it's so small. Now it's going to make Desmos bigger too. See, this is such a stupid freaking system. Okay, so x squared divided by square root of x squared minus c squared equals c squared divided by square root of x squared minus c squared plus 39. Okay, obviously there's a problem, right? So we just need to add a slider for c. So let's zoom out a little bit, get a little bit more space. So c equals, let's just do 1. It's a positive constant, let's do 1. So what do we get when we do that? All right, we get some numbers here. Okay. All right. Do I want to do 1? What happens if I move this? Oop. I like that. That looks pretty even at 40. No, it's not. Yeah, let's just do 10. Because 10 squared is 100, so that makes my life easier to think about. Okay, so here are some numbers. And we want to say which is the solution. So if C is 10, negative 10 does not look like a solution, so that's gone. This would be negative 100 minus 39 squared. So let's just type that in. So negative C squared minus 39 squared is negative 1,621. That is not a solution. I mean, I could go all the way out there. Nothing. So that's not good. Choice C is negative square root of 39 squared minus C squared. That is negative 37. Doesn't look right, right? That's negative 40 something. So that looks wrong. And this is negative C squared plus 39 squared. Negative 40 whatever. Yeah, seems good enough to me. 2.6. Yeah, 2 point something. Now, I am sure that there is some sort of insane algebra way to do it. Maybe I'll do it if I feel like it at the end, but there's no reason you would ever solve it that way. If you do, there's something wrong with you, because you should look at this and go, hell no. And that is usually a clue to make up a number, to use a slider, to arithmetize, to do whatever, plug points into equations. Anytime you look at algebra, you're like, oh, hell no. That's when you should do a strategy. But some of you don't have that hell no kind of reflex, which is insane to me. Who's out here like, oh yeah, I'm excited for this algebra? What the heck is wrong with you? Anyway, going back, let's do some of these easy ones with the calculator. All right, so f of x equals x squared plus x plus 71. And we want f of 77. Done. Cool. 16. This one I'm doing algebraically. Okay. So 16, part 2. 2a plus 2b, or 8b, equals 198. And 2a plus 4b is equal to 98. Now, just since I've got time, notice what I just did there. I wrote something wrong, but notice how quickly I caught it, because every time I'm writing, like you can see even just in the camera, my eyes moving back from here to here, here to here, here to here, right? Like some of you who get stuff wrong because they're careless mistakes, writing something out wrong, using the wrong number, typing the wrong number in your calculator. It's just as simple as every time you look back and forth and you just double check that you wrote the right thing. Like, you know, if I were to write 1,000 letters and numbers, I'd probably only write one of them wrong. But it doesn't, I still check for all 1,000 that I'm not making the mistake. It's very simple. You just got to check. For those of you who know how to drive, it's the same thing as when you drive. You're always checking your mirrors. So is someone behind you? Is someone next to you? You just got to know what's going on. And so you think of it the same way. Here I would eliminate the b's, or the a's rather. So we're going to subtract these two equations. So 2a minus 2a is 0a. So that's gone. 8b minus 4b is 4b. 198 minus 98 is 100. So b is 25. That's what we got. Easy. Okay. Yeah, what do we do here? What do they want me to do? I think what they want is for us to use this. The number of radians of arc in a circle is 2 pi. Right? So we're supposed to think, what is 42 pi really? Right? So 42 pi, right, is 21 2 pi's, meaning we're just going around and around and around 21 times. But am I supposed to remember like what sine of 2 pi is then? Like, what do they want me to do here? Because then basically the 21 don't matter. So you're really just like getting asked, what is sine of 2 pi? And again, do they expect me to remember that? I wouldn't, right? The calculator does it. I mean, 2 pi is here, right? So you've got it's full 360. Sine is, yeah, I mean, it's the y coordinate, right? And so it would be 0. I don't know. I don't know what they could possibly want me to do here besides just type in the calculator. So I don't know. I'll leave it bookmarked just so that I remember to go back to it at some point. But okay, let's do this. All right, look how much time I have. This is crazy. I'm going very, very leisurely through everything here. All right, so if I were doing, I keep saying Pythagorean theorem, quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So negative 2 plus or minus square root negative 2 squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So 2 plus or minus square root of 4 plus 36 over 2. See, now this is exactly why I was right not to do this, because look, 2 plus or minus the square root of 40 over 2. So many people, if they do this method, are going to think, yeah, I'm crushing it. I know the quadratic formula, and now I got it. It's 40, right? No, it's not 40, because this is not what they gave us, right? We have to reduce. But you can't just cross out the 2's and be done with it. You have to, it's a distribution problem. So that 2 has to be divided into both. And again, some of you are going to say, oh, 40 divided by 2 is 20. And there's another trap answer. No, you have to reduce this. So this is 4 times 10. This is 2 times 5. This is 2 times 2. So we have a pair of 2's that can come out of the radical, and a 2 and a 5 that stay back. So we end up with 2 plus or minus 2 root 10 over 2. Now we can divide the 2 into the coefficients. So this goes, this goes, this goes. These all reduce to 1. So that leaves us with 1 plus radical 10 over 1. And that's going to match now with the 1 plus radical k, and there's why k is 10. But look at all. First of all, it was faster and safer to do the calculator, as long as we knew how Desmos worked. Second of all, if you do the algebra method, you are opening yourself up to traps that don't even make any sense if you do it with Desmos, right? There's no way to even think of those choices as traps because the numbers don't lie. So to me, this is algebra. I know we've gotten rid of all of our variables by this point, but just a good example of like why we avoid algebra is that they have used algebra to come up with these wrong answers. So if you go down the path that they want you to go down, you are going to encounter these wrong answers along the way. Whereas if you go down a more strategic path, an alternative path, you are not even going to see these landmarks, these little things. You're just going to get the answer and it'll be like, these are just random numbers, which is good. All right. Let's do it. Let's do this stupid thing. X squared over radical x squared minus c squared equals c squared over radical x squared minus c squared plus 39. So we want a solution, which means we need we need x alone. Okay, we need x alone. So what would we do? I would multiply this thing by radical x squared over minus c squared over, yeah, should we do that? Yeah, so I'm going to multiply this by radical x squared minus c squared on the top and the bottom. So we're going to get x squared over radical x squared minus c squared equals c squared over radical x squared minus c squared plus 39 radical x squared minus c squared over radical x squared minus c squared. Okay. then these can combine because they have common denominators. And then the denominators on both sides are the same. So there's nothing to do other than just say this has to equal this. So x squared equals c squared plus 39 radical x squared minus c squared. What are we going to do here, though? This seems so stupid. I must be doing something messy. Yeah, no, see, I already am second guessing. Let's get rid of all this. I know what I'm going to do instead. See, now, if this really mattered, if I was really racing the clock here, this is bad that I just did all that work for nothing. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to subtract this over, and I'm going to get x squared minus c squared over, and I can combine them because they have the same denominator, x squared minus c squared, and that's equal to 39. Now, square both sides. So x squared minus c squared squared over x squared minus c squared equals 39 squared. Now, since there's an x squared minus c squared on the top and the bottom, I can reduce them. And that leaves me with x squared minus c squared equals 39 squared. So add c squared to both sides. X squared equals, and this is where you gotta be careful, because look at choice C. 39, which goes first, the C or the 39? That's gonna confuse people, but we should match it up if we can. So c squared plus 39 squared. Then you take the square root, x equals square root c squared plus 39 squared. Again though, even if you do all that right, a lot of people are gonna be like, well, what's the deal? Right, it's similar, but it's got that negative. Or, here's the other trap they're gonna make, is when they add this c squared over, they might do it so that it looks like this. So they're gonna end up with x equals radical 39 squared plus c squared, right? Because these are the same, right? It's addition, it doesn't matter. So they're gonna look at those two things as the same. And then they're going to have this moment because they're maybe good enough in algebra to get this far, but then they make this one little bad assumption, which is two negatives make a positive. So they'll be like, okay, this negative and this negative must cancel each other out, meaning I can just, it's the same as having the positive there. But that's not the case. Plus, the reason this negative can appear out front is if you're taking the square root of this, for various annoying algebra reasons, this is one of those times where we have to acknowledge that there's a negative solution as well, right? It's plus or minus because of the way the squaring works. And so that's where D comes in, is it is the right thing. It's just that they give us the minus version. But I don't know. It just seems like so many moments in that process where there's weird algebra moves being made, there's unreliable algebra moves being made, there's confusing ones being made that will make you second guess what you're even doing, and there's potential traps. So I don't know, it just seems very silly and stupid to not just put this in Desmos and get used to the slider. But I'll leave it bookmarked, see what they say. Yeah, we're done. I got plenty of time and I'm done with this. So let's take a break and then we'll move on to the hard module and finish practice test 10. All right, remember on the real test, you are not allowed to move on to the next section until you are totally done, until the timer is totally done, unless you have extra time. Then I think it does let you move on, but you really shouldn't. You should use all the time. I'm just, I'm not really taking this for anything that counts. So let's move on. Hard module. Okay. An airplane descends from an altitude of 9,500 feet to 5,000 feet at a constant rate of 400 feet per minute. What type of function best models the relation between the descending plane's altitude and time? So it's definitely a linear thing because it says constant, and its altitude is decreasing as it says descends at a constant rate. Yeah. Yep. Okay, there's my line. Parallel. What is the slope? So it's in y equals mx plus b form, so you just need to know same slope. So 17/7. Done. Okay, making popsicles. This is my function. Okay, which is the best interpretation of the y-intercept? So what is the y-intercept when x is 0? So making 0 popsicles. Had remaining. Oh, okay, had remaining. So it's first of all just 0 popsicles. He began to make the popsicles. He began to make, yes. This is a slope. This is a slope. So he had 30 fluid ounces when he began to make the popsicle. So plug in 0, you get 30. What is 30? That's the y. The y is the amount remaining. So he has 30 to start. Yeah, makes sense. Y-intercept. Here's this thing. X seconds of his launch. The following is the best interpretation of the vertex. Vertex is a maximum in this case because it's a negative a. So anything that sounds like a maximum. Okay, they all say that. So 5.6 is the time. 5.6 is the x coordinate. So 5.6 seconds. So 5.6 feet? No. 502 feet, 5.6 seconds of his launch. Yes, because that's the x and that's the y. Cool. See, notice how many questions, even in the hard module, are purely just, did you memorize this particular fact? If you did, it's a 5-second question. If you didn't, it's either longer or no chance of points. Okay. This is plug points into equations. 5. Okay, so f of x equals 4x plus k times x minus 1, where k is a constant. If f of 5 is 32, so let's just plug that point in. 32 is equal to 4 times 5 plus k times 5 minus 1. So 32 is 20 plus 4k. So 12 is 4k, right, minus 20. And so k is 3. But they want what's the value of f of 10. So if you put 3 here, shame on you. So f of 10 is 4 times 10 plus k is 3 times 10 minus 1. So 40 plus 3 times 9. So 40 plus 27 is 67. I'm going to check this later with the calculator just to be sure. That seems good. Okay. So let's just draw them out. Okay, so A, B, C, B and E are right angles. So B and E, A, C, D, F. So these are right angles. Measure of angle A is 18. What is measure of F down here? So there's 180 degrees in a triangle, 90 already accounted for here. So 90 minus 18 is what? 72. Let's double check that. I don't see what else it could be, but 72. Okay. Plug points into equations. So simple. Don't bother graphing this. It's all zeros. So let's just do it one equation at a time, I guess. So choice A in the first equation is 0 is less than negative 14 plus 7. So negative 14 plus 7 is negative 7. So that's true. Let's just do all of them. Same point. So 0 or negative 14 is less than 0 plus 7. That's true. 14 is less than 0 plus 7. No. And 0 is less than 14 plus 7. Okay. Oh, wait, this first one's not true. 0 is less than negative 7. No, it's not. I was going to say, there's got to be 2 that get rid of each, that get thrown out here. Negative 14 plus 7. 0 is less than negative 7. No, it is not. So A and C are gone. Let's do B and D now with the other equation. So negative 14 is greater than or equal to negative 1. No, it's not. D, 0 is greater than or equal to negative 28 minus 1. Check. Again, I would check this. This is another time. There's a lot of ways to mess up, right? Negatives, zeros, x's and y's switching. Okay. Which of the following statements must be true? The median data set A is equal to median data set B. So they're just even. So the median here is 13 because they're evenly spaced sets. This is also evenly spaced. So this is definitely true. So not this, not this. The standard deviation of A is equal to standard deviation of B. No, because they're spread out in different ways. So they're not equal. So one only. Yeah, because they're making different shapes. Scientists measures 12,000 bacteria in a growth medium 4 hours later. The scientist measures 24,000 bacteria, assuming exponential growth. The formula, whatever, gives the number of bacteria in the growth. Okay. What's the value of R? This seems like a plug points into equations. Let's give it a go. So P equals C. Let's just write the equation. Equals C 2 RT. So initially 12,000 bacteria, right? So 12,000 equals C times 2 to the 0. Because T would be 0. Yes. So C is, there you go. C is 12,000. Okay. And then 24,000 bacteria 4 hours later. So 24,000 bacteria, C is 12,000, 2, and then we're looking for R. So 4 is T, so 4R. Right, so we need this to multiply by 2. So we need this to be a 1. So R is a fourth. 1/4, 4. That's 1. 2 to the first. It's 2. 2 times 12,000, 24,000. Yeah. Plug points in equations. Okay. Cube is a volume. So the volume of a cube is length times width times height. So same thing cubed, right? So 4, 7, 4, 5, 5, 2. So let's take the cube root of that. I will show you where that is in the calculator. Since it's hard to find, you got to go to functions, scroll all the way down. Nth root is right here. So we're doing the cubed root of 4, 7, 4, 5, 5, 2 is 78. So the length is 78. And some of you might know the formula for the surface area of a cube because that's what they're looking for, but you can also just think about it, right? Is if this is 78, we want to get the area of a face, and then there's 6 of them, right? Front, back, top, bottom, left, right. So 78 squared is, let's just use this since we've got it. 78 squared is 6084, and then times 6. Times 6, 36,504. 36,504. And the other formula, if you really wanted, is 6s squared, where s is the side length. 6 times 78 squared is exactly what I just did, but I want to do it in this calculator. 6 times 78 squared, 36,504. Make sure you type it right. Don't get dyslexic and start flipping numbers around. Okay. Solution is XY. What's that? Okay. I'm sure there is a shortcut way to do this. I don't care. Why take the risk of seeing the wrong shortcut when Desmos is its own shortcut? Plus 4, 7y equals 12. Negative 2 times 8x plus 4 times 7y equals 12. Okay. So did I type it right? 2 8x plus 4 7y equals 12. Negative 2 8x plus 4 7y equals 12. So my point of intersection is this. So I know why they're making it hard for us to use Desmos because look at that number, it's so messy. So that is the point of intersection though, right? It's on that axis. Yeah, okay, so here's what we can do. We can copy the point, and this is x, this is y. They want 8x, so let's just manipulate it, right? So 8 times the x. Oop, come on, you know what I want here. 8 times the x plus 7 times the y. Why it's prompting me with those. 8. In fact, I don't even know what it wants or what it's doing right here. 8 times 0. So I want the 8 here. What is it doing? 8 times 0 plus 7. There we go. Oh my God. So it's 3. I should just do the algebra. See, they made it hard to do that here. So if I added these together, I would get that 8 times 7y is equal to 24. So 7y is equal to 3. And then I can just substitute that in without having to find y by itself. So 2 times 8x plus 4 times 3 is 12. So 2 times 8x, we'll leave it like that, plus 12 is 12. And we got our x to be, right, is 0. So 2 times 8x is 0. So 8x is 0. So we want 8x plus 7y. So that's 0 plus 3. Yeah, annoying. They did that on purpose. What is the area in square yards? Okay, anytime you get unit conversion, use my method. Okay. Let's do so 1 mile is 1,760 yards. And we want to know the area in square yards. So x yards squared, that is equivalent to 4.36 miles squared. So this looks like we're good, but we're not, because this is 2 of the yards, and we can cross off 1 of them, and 2 of the miles, we can cross off 1 of them. But we have another mile and another yard. So we need to use this conversion twice. Another one. 1 mile, 1,760 yards. Now the yards are completely crossed off. Now the miles are completely crossed off. And now we can just multiply. X is 1,760 times 1,760 times 4.36 is this huge number, 135055536. I can do that another way later. Move on. Ooh, this is new. Never seen this before. And it looks like a pain in the ass. So you know what? Let's just move on. All right, a small business owner budgets this to purchase candles. The owner must purchase a minimum of 200 candles to maintain the discounted pricing. The owner pays $4.90 per candle to purchase small candles. In fact, what is the maximum number of large candles the owner can purchase to stay within the budget? Okay, this is a system of equations. So we just need to make the equation. It's what I call a quantity and value. So a minimum of 200 candles to maintain the discounted pricing. So x plus y has to be greater than or equal to 200, where x is the small candles and this is large. So owner pays $4.90 per candle to do the small and $11.60 for the large. And the owner must purchase, maintain discount pricing. What is the maximum number the owner can purchase to stay within the budget and maintain the discount price? So less than or equal to 2,200. Anytime you got one of these, just go to the calculator. So x plus y is greater than, where is the thing? Here we go. Greater than or equal to 200, and 4.9x plus 11.6y is less than or equal to 2,200. Okay. Okay, so we're looking for the shaded region where they're overlapping. That's right here. And we want to know what is the maximum number of large candles. Large candles are y. So what's my highest y where they overlap? So they overlap at 182, but we got to go a little bit lower. So that should be 182. And again, I'm going to check this if I got time. There's ways to check this, but it's here. I'm going to write down the point so I have to do it again. So the point is 17.9 and 182.1. 17.9, 182.1. I think that's right. Yeah, good enough for now. Okay. Square inscribed in a circle. well, radius in the circle is 20 root 2 over 2. What is the side of the square? So let's connect some lines, draw radiuses, make triangles. So that is a 45-45 triangle I'm making with 2 radiuses. And so 20 root 2 over 2 is that side length. So what is the side length of the square? So according to our 45-45, that's my S. So 20 root 2 over 2 times root 2 would give me the hypotenuse. So the 2's would go 20 times 2 over 2, so 20. Mm, 20 root 2 divided by 2 is 14. So squared times 2 square root 20. Which of the following equations represents a circle exponent intersects the y-axis at exactly 1 point? Just graph them. X minus 8 squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 16. Doesn't intersect it at all. X minus 8, x minus 4. Nope, that's intersecting the x-axis. We want to intersect the y. X minus 4, x minus 9, and that equals 16. Yeah, that seems good. Let's try this one just for the sake of it. So x squared has 2 points. Yeah, easy. Which of the following is a system has no solution? Just graph it. Y equals 6x plus 18. Negative 6x plus y equals 18. Those have infinitely many solutions, it looks like. So that's probably not it. What if we change it to 22? That looks parallel. No solution means parallel, so it's probably it. Negative 12x plus y equals 36. Let's turn that off. Yeah, these clearly cross. Negative 12x plus y equals 18. Those clearly cross. So yeah, it's that. Okay. This feels like an arithmetize. What did I say before? If you look at it and you're like, hell no, you should just use a strategy. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, hell no. Can I make it 0? No, because x and y on the bottom right need to be things. Let's just make it 1. X is 1, y is 1. Let's see what happens. So this would be 13 over negative 7 is equal to, or plus 1 times negative, okay, so that's negative 7 over 1 minus 8 is negative 7. So 13 minus 7 is 6 over negative 7. So that's my answer. Let's see if we get it. A, 1 plus 1 plus 4 is 6 over 1 minus 16 plus 64. 1 minus 16 plus 64 is 49. So this is 6 over 49. No. This is 1 plus 9 plus 12 over 1 minus 8 plus 1 minus 8. So 1 plus 9 plus 12 is 22. 22 over 1 minus 8 plus 1 minus 8, negative 14. No way. 6 over negative 7, that's what we're looking for. C, 1 plus 13 minus 8 over 1 minus 8. 1 plus 13 minus 8 is 6. 1 minus 8 is negative 7, so that looks good. We gotta check D. Okay. 1 plus 13 minus 8 over 1 minus 16 plus 64. I feel like I already did that. That's 49. And 1 plus 13 minus 8 I already did is 6, so that doesn't work either. C, done. Now I could check this in Desmos as well, but I think that was much easier than typing all that crap into Desmos. Good. I still can't read these things. Which the following is going to Q. Okay. Can I just do the same thing here? Right, so if I did 20 over P is equal to, let's make Q1, so 20 minus 20 minus 20. Right, if they're all 1, so P or Q equals 1, R equals 1, S equals 1. So that's 20 over P is equal to 20 minus 20 is 0, so negative 20. So 20P or negative 20P is equal to 20. So divide by negative 20, divide by negative 20. P is negative 1. So we've got a bunch of numbers here to plug in. We want to get them equal to Q, which is 1. So it's hard to, this is the downside of the scratch paper. So what did I say? So Q is 1, R is 1, S is 1, P is negative 1. Okay, so A, negative 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 1. So that checks out, but let's just double check. 20 times negative 1 plus 1 plus 1. Cancels, that's 20. No. C, negative 1 times 1 times 1, so it's negative 1 over negative 1 minus 1 plus 1. So that's negative 1. So that's not right, right? Negative P, or P is negative 1 times R is negative 1. Negative 1. Oh, that's negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Oh, so this is negative 1. I'm crossing out the wrong things. Negative 1. Yeah. I probably could have just arithmetized with this in the slider. How many do you do on time? Okay. So this also works because I think this is positive 1 as well. And then D is, so this is negative 1 over negative 20 plus 20 plus 20. No. So it's A or C. I have a feeling it's C just from the complexity of the thing, but what can we do here? What if we did something else that's really simple? 20 over P is equal to 1 minus 1 minus 1, which is negative 1. So then P is negative 20, and all of these are 20, or Q is 20, R is 20, S is 20. So A, right, because we've gotten rid of A and, okay, this and this, I kind of flubbed this a bit. So negative 20 plus 20 plus 20 is 20. That checks out. This is going to freaking work. I know it. P times R. So is negative 8,000 over negative 400 plus 400 or minus 400 plus 400. Negative 8. I did it again. I crossed out wrong again. So this is 8,000 divided by 4. Darn it. How do I want to do this? Committed this much. So it's definitely C. 20 over P is equal to 20 RS minus 20 QS minus 20 QR all over QRS. And yeah, I'm just gonna move on. I know it's C. There's no way it's this simple. And the equation K is an integer, no real solution was the least possible by K. Okay, easy. Easy. I should have been skipping around this whole time. So X or KX squared minus 56 x equals negative 16. Let's add that over. So kx squared minus 56x plus 16 equals 0. Discriminant, no real solution. So b squared minus 4ac is less than 0. So negative 56 squared minus 4 times k times 16 is less than 0. So 56 squared is 3136 minus 4 times 16. 64k is less than 0. So 3136 is less than 64k. 3136 divided by 64 is 49. So 49 is less, or k is greater than 49. What is the least possible value? It's got to be 50. And I bet I can check that in Desmos too if I've got time. Oh my God, they love this freaking question type. All right, the last time I did this, I did it with plugging in numbers. Let's do it with the calculator. 2x plus 3y equals 7. And that other equation is the same thing, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so r equals 1. I don't know why I'm putting parentheses around that. Okay, so r over 5 plus 7, comma, negative r over 5 plus 35. So that's a point somewhere up there. So that's wrong, but I'll just put all the points on. Negative 3r over 2 plus 7 halves, comma r. That's a good looking point. R, comma, 2r over 3 plus 7 thirds. R, comma, negative 3r over 2 plus 7 halves. Okay, so it's definitely not the black point, which is A. So just adjust this. It's the red one. The red one is B. Other ways I can prove it, but that's good enough. And this is why we always want to save time for the last question. Repair specialist charges $220 for the first 2 hours of repair plus an hourly fee for each additional hour. Total cost of 5 hours is $400. So this is plug points and equations. So 400 is a nice easy point, right? So A would be 5 times 60, which is 300 plus 100. That works. B would be 60 times 5, which is 300 plus 220. No. This would be 80 times 5, which is 400. So that works. And D would be 400 plus the 220. So nope. So then let's choose a new point. $220 for the first 2 hours. So 2 hours is $220. So we're down to A and C. I think it's going to be A. So A is 60 times 2. 120 plus 100 is 220. Check. C is 80 times 2, which is 160. No. Easy. Cool. I had one more I skipped way back. Okay. These are graph the XY plane. Okay. The measurement angle Q is T degrees. What is happening? Okay, can I just put this in this calculator? So 4, 5, 4, 7, 6, 5. Okay, so that's a right triangle. Okay. PQR. LMN has vertices 4, 5. So this is P. This is Q. This is R. Okay, what else are we doing? L is 4, 5, so that's the same point. M is 4, 7 plus K. So we'll add that slider. And then N is 6 plus K, 5. Okay. So angle Q for 7 is up here. The measure of angle Q, which is connecting with P and R, okay, so it's like that, 4, 5, 4, 7, 6, 5. Where K is a positive constant. The measure of angle Q is T. What is the measure of angle N? So N is that guy out there. What is happening? All right, so if I turn these off for a sec and then draw this triangle, so P, Q, R, and this is T. So P, these I know. So this is, right, so that's 2 and that's 2. So it's a 2, 2. So this is a 45-degree angle, right? Okay, PQR. All right. K is a positive. The measure of angle Q is T. What is the measure of angle N? So L, M, N, with K being whatever I want it to be. K is a positive constant. So N is that. Okay. N is down here. PQR. LMN. T is 45. So if K is 1, this is 3 and 3. So isn't it the same thing? This is also 45. If I make this bigger, I think I messed up here. I don't know what I did. I don't know. This is a guess. I definitely messed up here. I'm misreading this. I can tell. So I think it's because that's a distance of 3. 1. Yeah, I messed that up. Yeah, I spent way too long on... I'm glad I skipped that question, though, right? See, this is why you got to skip things when you get to something that looks like a mess. I spent way too long on this thing. I probably should have just done the algebra here. I mean, here's the thing, is I kind of knew the answer was going to be C. I know that I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one. And I knew it, and I was just trying to show you guys what it was, but I should have just been like, I know this test well enough. Everything else, yeah, these were all fast. This one maybe, no, that one's fine. This one I should have just done the algebra maybe from the start. But all these others where I plug points into equations, that was definitely the right call. Yeah. So I was mostly guessing on that last one there, but if it annoys me that I'm gonna have to make that whole Desmos thing again because I was misreading the question. I think it wasn't 2 and 2. I think this was 3. I was just misreading it. But either way, graphing that really helps me. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, very unusual for me to run out of time. I am confident that if I were taking the actual SAT math there, I would not have run out of time. I was getting I was acting too much like a teacher here and not enough like a student. And I should have just taken the test instead of talking so much and trying to show my answers. But there you go. That's what happens. But all right, let's take a look. Well, there you have it. I got a very rare math question wrong. That almost never happens, probably like twice a year. So you are witnessing history, folks. So I got that math question wrong, the one with the triangles, as I expected. So I understand the answer. I'll show you in a second. But I was actually surprised I got a reading question wrong as well. So here's the math one. Here's the reading one. And it's funny because this is definitely an old question. So if I go to the reading one in my scoreboard here, it's the last one. And this is an old question. I've seen this before, and I don't quite remember if I got it wrong the first time I did it. But looking at it now, I'm having like a vague memory of like my irritation with this question because of what they're asking. The student wants to make a generalization about the kind of study conducted by these people. Okay, well, that to me suggests that you really want to make sure you mention those people, right? Because otherwise, what are we doing? And to me, what kind of study is it? That's the question I would ask based on this. Well, it's a statistical analysis study. That seems fine, right? It's I don't know. I guess it's not a generalization because it's specifically talking about this one song. But to me, you're still making a generalization about the kind of study, right? Like based on statistical analysis is about as general as you can get, right? That's not specifying what they did with the numbers, what the statistical analysis consisted of. So to me, that's the generalization, but they're saying the answer is D. And notice this does not mention these people at all. It just says researchers have used statistical methods to address questions of authorship within the field of music. So I guess now we're generalizing because we're not talking about a specific piece of music. But to me, if you're trying to generalize about the kind of study, saying that it uses statistical methods is very much the same thing as saying it's based on statistical analysis. Those are both generalizations about the kind of study. And then to me, whether you include the people's names is really the thing. And they say we don't want to include them. I say we do, right? They're saying choice A is incorrect because the sentence summarizes the methodology and findings of a particular analysis of a single song. It doesn't make a generalization about the kind of study conducted. Again, to me, based on statistical analysis is about as general as they come. So I do not quite remember if I got this wrong the first time I did it. It was definitely on tests 1, 2, and 3, but I wasn't filming myself taking those tests. So I don't really remember. And I would have to go back several dozen test forms in the My Practice thing to actually see it. So I'm not going to go hunting for that. But that kind of annoys me because I don't know. I feel like I got the question wrong before. And if I got it wrong twice, it's usually not a good sign that the question, is good. It seems like it's got a flaw in it, but so it goes. And this was the one that I missed. And the answer is very obvious. It's C. I was actually going to pick that in the moment, but my thinking was that was actually too easy. But it is question 13. So even in the hard module, 13 is hard, but not crazy tricky. So I went with B. Mostly because I was like, it probably has this weird little twist. But I was right on it. I kind of understood what was going on, is that Q is this top angle, and then N is going to be some sort of complement to that. The problem is I kept misreading this graph, and I redrew it here, and it's amazing how much different it is, right? So here, if I cross off all the points, I see that I have very clearly what I drew, a 2x2, 45, 45, 90 triangle, right? So it's very clear. If I turn those points off and turn on the other three, L, M, and N with the K, it's also very clear that I have a 3x3. And so it's obvious what's going on. And N is this one down here, this one in green. And so it's still a right triangle. It's still a 45, 45. And no matter what I do to K, it's going to continue to be the same distance, right? 4, 4, right? If I go to 3, 5, 5. So what's really weird then is this question also asked for something vague when they didn't have to, right? They're giving me the answer is 90 minus t. Unless I'm missing something obvious here, I know what the value of t is. T is 45. Oh, here, they even say t is 45. So rather than give me the answer in this kind of 90 minus t way, where it's like a complementary angle and they're kind of going out of their way to avoid saying the value, we know the value. We know that t is 45 and we know the angle n is also 45. So it's just odd. This is something the SAT does a lot. They create a question where you could solve for something, but then they ask it in a way that kind of stops short. And it's just very bewildering. Like I think I kind of got a little thrown off by that because I'm like, well, maybe this is harder than I think. The other problem, and this is what really bothers me, you heard me complaining about this a bunch during the test. Desmos is great. It's an amazing tool, but the way that it shows up in the Bluebook app is very frustrating. You can't, I mean, if I see this big screen, it's very obvious what's going on. I can see this really, really clearly. I can count those boxes. But because Desmos in the Bluebook app is either this really tiny rectangle, right, this big, that you can't even see more than one line of the text, I kept getting confused. What am I looking at? What are these points here? Are these the PQR points? Are these the LMN points? I was just getting confused what they were. And then because I had to keep like zooming to get the triangle to fit in that little thing, I kept kind of adding in boxes. So watch, if I zoom in now, this number of boxes is too many boxes for my brain to comprehend the distance. So even when I was at PQR, I was having second thoughts because I'm like, maybe I'm misreading this. For some reason, it looked to me like this side was longer than this side. It was purely just in my head, but it was because the thing was so small, I couldn't count the right way. And that's ultimately why I tried to draw here. I just ran out of time to do it. But like, I just kind of lost track of the size of this thing. But if you look at it this way, this is insane. You can't tell. But if you zoom out just a little, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. And every time I switch it to something else, it's still the same. 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. It's just the way that Desmos shows up in the Bluebook app. It's either this little tiny thing or it's so big that it covers the question. And then I can't see both things at once. It's very frustrating. So I don't know, maybe it's just me being old and cranky, but it just feels like a big problem that when I do have issues on the SAT, it's almost always that. And if I don't use Desmos, the reason I'm almost always using Desmos, like the reason I didn't use Desmos for something like this, where I could have easily just done sliders and kind of felt it out. The reason I didn't use it is I was like, it's going to be such a pain in the neck to type all that and see it. So the reason I did it on my page is I couldn't get Desmos to fit on the screen in a way that would have let me see the question and all the stuff I was typing into it. I don't know what the solution is to that, but it's very frustrating. And it definitely limits my usage of that very powerful tool. Maybe that's intentional. Let me know what you think. Is that something that you guys notice too, that Desmos kind of gets in the way or is so small that it's basically useless? I mean, I find that it's just very frustrating, but I'm curious if I'm the only one. Otherwise though, yeah, this is not a hard question, this one. It's something you should get right. It takes some persistence, and Desmos is fine. You could have drawn it out without Desmos though, and as long as you understand the distances involved, you can do it. You can also do some cool things with Desmos, which if you're really good at Desmos, you can kind of use like Polygon here and do, LMN. I think there's a way to do it, LMN. You can shade it. I don't think that does much good. You can also do distance formula here. So functions, where is it? Distance, and then do like L and M, and it's 4. And then as you adjust, right, you can see it adjusting. And if I had done, right, so L is this point. So if I had done a distance for L and M and a distance for L and N, problem solved, right? I see that no matter what, those distances are the same. And so instead of counting boxes, I can just do it. But again, I know that these things exist, but it was just so hard for me to like get all this stuff in the screen and still see the problem. I don't know. It just held me back. So If you have any other clever ways to do that one, please let me know. As always, I will have videos for these individual questions as soon as I am able. But just to kind of summarize this test overall, remember this test was built out of previous ones, practice test 1, 2, and 3. There are a lot of questions I recognized, but the fact is, in the reading section, the one that I got wrong is a question I've taught and done a bunch of times, and I still get it wrong. And in math, that was a new question. I'd never seen that one before, but still, I think these are good tests for anyone who's looking to practice. It seems like a reasonable score. One wrong in each. In reading, I lost 20 points. In math, I lost 10. It feels pretty normal. And notice they hit me. I rarely, even if I get stuff wrong, do I get hit with a box missing. But there's just so few geometry questions on the SAT. So if you get one wrong, it's going to hit geometry. And that's one thing I'll leave on. These boxes here are basically useless. These knowledge and skills boxes. They can be helpful if one of them is just really, really low. But if I got this from a student, the student is going to think, oh, I'm bad at geometry. I really need to practice geometry in order to get better at the SAT. But it's one geometry question that happened to be weird. It's a coincidence. You're not bad at geometry. You had trouble on one hard question. So this is not a reflection of your strengths and weaknesses in every case. Sometimes it can be. Sometimes it's just a coincidence of what you happen to get wrong. And it just happens that the hardest question was a geometry question. It's it doesn't mean you're bad at geometry. Just means you're bad at hard questions. That can happen. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. Once again, I'm Mike Settele, founder of Settele Tutoring. And remember, when it comes to your scores, don't settle for less, Settele for more. Last practice test. Done. Woo!